Last night I fell asleep reading about a villain. This morning I woke up inside it as his wife. The book says he'll kill me in 3 days. He's in the next room and the only thing between us is a door and this plan. Welcome to Whispering Illusion. If you're ready for a story where the only way to survive a dark romance is to rewrite it, then make sure you're subscribed. Let's begin. The air smelled like sandalwood and money. That was my first drowning thought. Not the bleach and cheap coffee of my old life. My fingers closed on silk, heavy and embroidered with something that felt like geometry under my skin. My apartment didn't have a ceiling that disappeared into shadow, nor a wall of glass showing a silent, glittering city far below. My heart was a frantic, trapped bird. Frostbite Empire. I knew this place. I'd read it. The penthouse of the Shen Corporation. A gilded cage for a doomed, decorative wife. I'd skimmed her chapters, bored by her shallow concerns. Lin Xiao. That was the name that now settled on my skin, foreign and sticky as someone else's sweat. I was her, and I was going to die. The sound came then. A precise, quiet tap on marble, rhythmic and mechanical. A cadence I knew from 100 descriptions. The sound of his chair. Of him. Shen Yijun, the herald of my murder.
Ice flooded my veins. I didn't turn. In the book, he hated being seen first, hated any perception of his weakness. He saw betrayal in eye contact, conspiracy in a misplaced sigh. The door whispered open. The air grew heavier, colder. You're awake. His voice was a low, calm thing. It didn't rasp or shout. It stated facts like a judge reading a verdict already passed. There was no warmth in it. Only a profound, empty finality. I had to speak. The original Lin Xiao would have whined about the lighting or demanded breakfast in bed. Her voice was always a little too high, a little too thin. I forced air past the stone in my throat. The city lights are quite something from up here. Like trapped stars.
It was the most inane thing I could think of, something the footnote might say. You've said that every night for a week. Have you finally run out of original thoughts? A scalpel of words. Exactly as written. My laugh was a brittle choking sound. Maybe I just like consistency. In a world full of variables, it's comforting. The word variables fell between us, alien. The Lin Xiao from the book didn't know that word unless it was about her wardrobe. The tapping came closer. He stopped by the window, a broad-shouldered silhouette against the galaxy of neon. I could feel his gaze not on my face, but on the line of my back, assessing, dissecting. Your father called. The sentence was a landmine. He's anxious about the merger. The final papers are pending my signature. The transaction. My body for his money. In the plot, her constant nagging about this, her clumsy attempts at manipulation, were the kindling for his rage. The irreversible choice was coming. I felt its shadow in the room. I swung my legs out, the marble biting cold into my bare feet. Movement. I had to move. I walked to the kitchenette, a puppet on trembling strings. Tell him to be patient. Good things come to those who don't pester their son-in-law. The words were steadier than I felt. A rejection of the script. The silence behind me was profound, humming with a new dangerous curiosity. Is that so? Not a question. Probe sunk into deep water. I boiled water, clinking porcelain, focusing on the ritual. The book mentioned his tea. The obsessive specificity of it. Would you like some tea? I can't sleep either. Chamomile? Or you prefer oolong at night, don't you? The Phoenix one. How do you know that? The housekeeper talks. I listen. It's more entertaining than staring at jewelry catalogs. I brought the cup to him, placing it on the low table beside his chair. My eyes flickered up, taking in the details I'd read. The hands elegant and lethal. The jaw sharp enough to cut the tense air. The eyes. They were fixed on me, dark and depthless, not with the annoyance the book described, but with a cold scientific interest. I was a changed variable. He was deciding if I was a contaminant. He took the cup. His fingers brushed mine. They were shockingly cold. What do you want, Lin Xiao? The question of the century. I wanted to not be found out. I wanted to not die. Right now? For this tea not to be poisoned. Kidding. Bad joke. Terrible joke. The panic leaked out as idiocy. He didn't smile. He sipped. Your humor has taken a morbid turn. Must be the atmosphere. He set the cup down with a quiet, definitive click. The merger will be completed on the 28th. Your father will have his lifeline. Your duty, as he so charmingly put it, is done. The 28th. The date slammed into me. 3 days after the anniversary of his parents' death. The blackest day on his calendar. The day the original Lin Xiao, emboldened by his grief, tried to steal from him. The day he snapped her neck. He was waiting. Waiting for the greed, the predictable pressure. I sank to the floor, leaning against the sofa, putting myself below his eye line. A non-threat. It must be exhausting. What must be? Having everyone's loyalty be a conditional transaction. Even from family. Even from a wife. The air froze solid. I'd named the ugly truth. I'd spoken a language the footnote wasn't supposed to know. His voice dropped, becoming softer, infinitely more dangerous. You speak as if you're not part of that economy. Oh, I am. The most expensive purchase you've ever made. I looked out at the fake stars. I'm just wondering, after the 28th, what's the return policy on a wife? I felt his stare like a physical weight. There is none. A life sentence. A death sentence. So I became a ghost. I stopped calling the people who were my family. I wandered his library, pulling out books on architecture and obscure history, leaving them on tables half-read. I perfected the Phoenix Oolong. I existed quietly, visibly, but without demands. A harmless, puzzling fixture. I caught him watching me. Not with lust or irritation, but with that relentless analysis. I was an equation that wouldn't balance. The day before the anniversary was thick with the promise of storm. I found him in his study, a silhouette of pure tension before a draped portrait. The grief in the room was a suffocating fog. I'm going to the old city. The one with the zigzag bridges. They say the rain there sounds like whispers. Why? It wasn't a question. It was a scrape of sound. Because it's beautiful. And because being here right now feels like standing in a tomb. Even for me. A bitter, hollow sound escaped him. You think you can escape it? No. But I can choose not to drown in it with you. The madness of the offer vibrated in my teeth. Come with me. He turned. His eyes were terrifying, dry, red-rimmed, burning with a corrosive, sleepless rage. Do you think this is a game? Your new act of carefree wisdom? I am not a project for your rehabilitation. I know. You're a man who's about to spend tomorrow drowning in blood and memory. I held his gaze, a moth challenging a flame. I'm just offering different water. For a few hours. Thunder murmured in the distance. He looked from the shrouded portrait to me, and a crack appeared, not in his anger but in his exhaustion. The car will be ready in 10 minutes. The old city was another world. Rain painted the narrow lanes in slick, dark hues, and the zigzag bridges glowed under the soft blush of paper lanterns. We didn't speak. He maneuvered his chair with a fierce, silent competence. I just walked beside him, holding the umbrella over us both. At a steaming stall I pointed. They sell sticky rice cakes here that taste like childhood. The kind that gets stuck in your teeth and makes you laugh. Your childhood was imported Swiss chocolates and private tutors. A girl can read about a childhood, can't she? I bought two, the warm paper soaking through instantly. I handed one to him. Maybe I'm nostalgic for one I never had. He stared at the humble cake as if it were a coded message. We stopped on a bridge. The world shrank to the percussion of rain on water and the immense, silent fortress of his presence beside me. They're not worth it, you know. Who? The people who did it. The ones you think about tomorrow. They live in your head, rent-free, poisoning every good moment. I took a bite, the sweetness cloying and perfect. My father is the same. A small greedy man taking up a palace-sized space in my life. I'm evicting him. He finally took a bite. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. It's too sweet. Lies. It's perfect. I saw it then, just a flicker. Not a smile, but a slight reluctant surrender of the harsh line his mouth had held for so long. You are infuriatingly different. Good. Footnotes are boring. Later, the storm raged against the penthouse windows. I was adrift on the vast sofa when a sound tore through the dark. A raw guttural cry of pure anguish. From his room. His nightmares. The book described them as visceral rehearsals of the accident that took his parents, seeding the paranoia that would later cost a wife her life. My body moved before my mind could counsel survival. His door was ajar. In a flash of lightning I saw him. Back arched, sheets twisted like bonds, his face a mask of torment. A broken whisper. Asterisk, not the brakes, it wasn't an accident. Asterisk. The original Lin Xiao had heard this. She'd called him a hysteric. She'd sealed her fate with her contempt. I didn't touch him. I sat on the floor, my back against the side of his bed, and began to hum. A silly wordless tune from a world away. A lullaby for lost things. Slowly, the terrible tension seeped from him. His breathing deepened, eased. In the new dark between thunderclaps, his voice was rough, stripped bare. Why are you here? The storm was loud. You're a terrible liar. I know. I began to rise. Go back to sleep, Shen Yijun. The ghosts can wait until morning. His hand shot out faster than I thought possible. His fingers closed around my wrist. The grip was iron, but it wasn't meant to hurt. It was an anchor. A claim. Stay. A request, fractured and desperate. I sank back down. He didn't let go. His thumb settled over the frantic beat in my wrist, as if measuring the truth of my presence. We stayed like that until the gray light of dawn. His nightmare held at bay by the fragile bridge of our connected skin. The 28th dawn clear and cold. The merger was signed. The call came, my father's voice slimy with triumph, already demanding more, suggesting ways to leverage my position, my discontent. I hung up. I blocked the number. The betrayal was clean, surgical. A betrayal of the person I was supposed to be, for the person I needed to become. I found him in the study. A glass of liquor sat untouched before him. The portrait was still draped. The signed documents were a neat, damning pile. It's done. Yes. My father will call you. My voice was flat. He'll try to manipulate. To threaten. He'll suggest I'm unhappy, that you're cruel. He'll imply others might treat his daughter and his business better. I was handing him the script of the betrayal. I was showing him the knife, hoping he'd see my empty hands. He swirled the liquor, his gaze on the black silk. And what will you tell him? I took a breath that felt like my first. I'll tell him my husband is indeed cruel. He's cruel to his enemies. He's cruel to the ghosts that haunt him. And he has exquisite taste in tea. I met his eyes then, letting him see the truth taking root in me. But he has never been cruel to me. He set the glass down with a soft final click. When he looked at me, the obsidian in his eyes had changed. The cold curiosity was gone, replaced by a focused, blazing intensity. A possessiveness that didn't feel like ownership of a thing but of a truth. Come here. I went. He reached out and his fingers didn't grip. They traced the line of my jaw. A touch so startling in its tenderness it felt like a brand. You hummed a song last night. I don't know it. It's from a story I once read. A lullaby for lost things. Hum it again. So I did, softly, in the room heavy with his past. He closed his eyes. When they opened, the decision in them was absolute, immutable. The West Wing. It's empty. It has better light. You should turn it into a studio. For whatever you do with your variables. It wasn't an offer. It was a delineation, a space for me, carved out within the fortress of his world, an acknowledgement that I was staying, that I had become a variable he no longer wished to solve for zero, but to integrate into his own chaotic equation. What if I want to paint? It'll be messy. A faint, almost imperceptible shift at the corner of his mouth. Then I will learn to appreciate the mess. His hand slid to the back of my neck, pulling me down gently until I knelt before his chair, our faces level. His breath was warm, smelling of tea and that faint, clean scent that was just him. The danger was still there, thrumming beneath his skin, beneath mine. But it had transformed. It was no longer a blade aimed at my heart. It was a current pulling me into his depths. You are mine, Lin Xiao. The words were a vow, dark and irrevocable. This marriage, this tomb, this unlikely peace. You don't get a return policy. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was a sealing, claiming, a collision of two lonely, fractured universes. It tasted of forgiveness for crimes we hadn't committed yet, and the bitter, sweet promise of a shared, treacherous future. The peace we had built was a fortress, but I was learning that even fortresses had windows, and sometimes people looked in. The first flicker of something unfamiliar in his eyes came during the Lu Foundation dinner. A former classmate of mine, a man named Alex who existed in the hazy, half-remembered memories of the original Lin Xiao, approached. He was all easy smiles and casual charm, the kind of man who belonged to a world of sunlight and simple choices. He clasped my hand warmly, ignoring the subtle shift in the air around Shen Yijun's chair. Lin Xiao, you look different, radiant. The city air? Or something more interesting? Alex's voice was a smooth, friendly baritone. I laughed, a light social sound, and extracted my hand. We exchanged 2 minutes of meaningless pleasantries about alumni events. Throughout, I felt a gaze colder than the air conditioning settle on the side of my face. It wasn't anger. It was a profound, hyper-focused stillness. When Alex finally moved away, the space beside me felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Shen Yijun said nothing. Not then. But that night his touch was different, less controlled. When his hands traced the line of my spine, there was a new possessiveness in the gesture, a silent remapping of territory. His kisses, usually so precise, held a hint of desperation, a hunger that felt like a question. He buried his face in the curve of my neck and inhaled deeply, as if trying to erase a scent he hadn't even smelled. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. His jealousy was silent. A tectonic shift felt only in the intimacy of our darkness, in the way his arms tightened around me long after I'd fallen asleep, as if I might dissolve into the same social ether from which I'd come. My own jealousy was a noisier, more chaotic creature. It arrived with Zhongli, yes, but it wore many faces. It was the young, brilliant architect he hired to consult on the new corporate tower, a woman who spoke of load-bearing stresses and aesthetic revolution with the same fervor. He would listen, chin resting on his steepled fingers, a look of deep intellectual engagement on his face that he rarely showed anyone. A hot, petty coal would glow in my chest. I took up architectural history. I left massive, daunting textbooks on the coffee table, pages dog-eared at sections about postmodern deconstruction. He'd see them, a ghost of a smile touching his lips, and once, he slid a heavy leather-bound folio of Frank Lloyd Wright's sketches towards me without a word. It was an acknowledgement, a silent invitation into that part of his mind. The coal of jealousy cooled, transforming into something else. A challenge, a connection. The most potent intimacy, however, was born from his body. His slow, arduous recovery from the procedure was a private landscape we navigated together. There were days of fierce, silent frustration, where he would slam a fist against the arm of his chair, the impotent sound echoing in the gym we'd built. I never offered empty platitudes. Instead, I would simply sit on the mat beside him, my shoulder brushing his leg, and open a book or start humming that silly wordless tune. My presence was a steady counterpoint to his storm. The first time he managed to stand, unaided by anything but his own will and the braces, for a full minute, the sweat poured down his temples. He wasn't looking at his legs. He was looking at me. His eyes blazing with a victory that had nothing to do with standing and everything to do with the witness he saw in my face. When his knees buckled, I was there not to catch him. He would have hated that. But to meet his fall, to cushion his descent onto the mat, so we landed in a tangled, breathless heap. Our laughter was ragged, mixed with his pained gasps and my own relieved tears. We lay there on the rubberized floor, a mess of limbs and shared triumph, and he kissed me. A salty, sweaty, profoundly real kiss that tasted of struggle and a future being carved out by hand. Our bedroom became a world unto itself. The careful distance of the early days had long since evaporated. Now I would wake to find his arm a heavy, welcome weight across my waist, his breath stirring my hair. Mornings were slow, languid explorations. The faint scar on his knee from the surgery, the particular way the light caught the silver at his temples, the steady beat of his heart under my palm, these were my scriptures. He, in turn, seemed fascinated by the most mundane details. The freckle on my shoulder, the way I would curl my toes when truly content, the soft sound I made when halfway between sleep and waking. His observations were never voiced, but communicated through touch. A thumb brushing that freckle, a hand enveloping my foot to still its movement. One rainy afternoon, I was in the West Wing, covered in clay from a disastrous foray into sculpture. He wheeled in, a dark silhouette against the gray light. He didn't speak. He simply took my dirty, muddy hands in his own clean, elegant ones and began to wipe them clean with a damp cloth he'd brought. It was a slow, meticulous process. He cleaned under each nail, traced the lines of my palms, his head bowed in concentration. It was more intimate than any kiss, this silent, devoted care for my creative mess. When my hands were clean, he lifted them, first one then the other, and pressed his lips to the center of each palm. A silent vow. A blessing. My heart swelled too big for my chest. The final exorcism of the old ghosts happened unexpectedly. We attended an opera, a somber, sweeping tragedy. In the dim theater, I felt his body tense beside me during the second act. A scene of profound betrayal. His hand found mine in the darkness, his grip vice-tight. At the climax, as the soprano's voice soared with grief, I felt a single hot tear land on the back of my hand where he held it. He did not move, did not make a sound. He simply let it fall. That single surrendered tear, witnessed only by me in the dark, felt like the last page of his own private tragedy being turned. When the lights came up, his face was its usual impassive mask. But he did not release my hand. He held it all the way to the car, through the silent ride home, and into the elevator, as if it were the only real thing in the world. That night in our bed, he didn't reach for me with passion, but with a quiet, overwhelming need for solace. He pulled me into the circle of his arms, his face pressed against my hair, his entire body curved around mine. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then in the barest whisper, a confession meant only for the darkness in my skin, he said, "I cannot lose you." It wasn't a command. It was the raw, unvarnished core of him. The villain, the tycoon, the man stripped bare. I turned in his arms, facing him. I didn't offer promises. He knew better than to believe in easy words. Instead, I kissed the scar on his brow, the tension in his jaw, the pulse at the base of his throat. I mapped his fears with my lips and soothed them with my touch, building a new geography of us, one where his jealousy was met with my steadfastness, and my insecurities were quieted by his fierce, silent devotion. We were no longer a footnote and a villain, but two flawed, scarred people writing their own story in the dark, one whispered truth, one shared tear, one clean, clay-stained hand at a time.